Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Veterans Committee. I will start with the electronic motion. I'll read the motion, and then our vote on the motion will also serve as our roll call for committee. The motion is as follows. Pursuant to Governor Lee's Executive Order number 78 regarding electronic meetings, I make a motion that this committee meeting agenda constitutes essential business of the Metropolitan Council, and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion made, properly seconded. Well, I will call the roll. Councilmember Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Hauser.
Here.
Chair votes aye. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
Present, or I mean aye, pardon me.
Or both, how about that? That is 7 in favor, 0 against. That's everybody, so there's no abstentions. We have 2 items on our agenda. One is a bit larger than the other, but the first is a resolution RS 2021-794 by Rutherford and Nash. Approves a memorandum of understanding to transfer solid waste disposal responsibilities from the Department of Public Works to the Department of Water and Sewer Services, along with the related operational activities, personnel, and equipment. I'm on this. I'll make the motion. Do we have a second for purpose of discussion?
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded. Is there anyone from the administration or the council office that could just give us a quick little line about this? Hannah, do we have, or can you make a comment about it?
I think that maybe the administration wants to speak on this. Is it Mike Jamison?
It is. Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jamison, you are recognized.
And I'm so sorry. Can you, I just tuned in and I'm catching up. So can you remind me what we're on?
Yes, this is the resolution 794, the memorandum of understanding.
Got it.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much. I would be remiss if I did not point out that in the previous committee, there was a deferral for 2 meetings. The administration had proposed a 1-meeting deferral, and then if it was deemed appropriate by the council members after that, defer it again if necessary. This, of course, is the precursor to the creation of a Department of Transportation by transferring solid waste functions from Public Works to Metro Water Services by MOU. We do, however, want every council member to be thoroughly comfortable with the provisions of this, and so to the extent you have questions, please let us know. The 2 things I would say just on the interim basis is that there will be significant public outreach for the charter created version of the Department of Transportation, but because we amend the charter typically in conjunction with general election cycles, we don't have the chance to create the DOT officially until 2022. So our options would be to essentially do nothing, or at least to get started with a model of that approach that then hopefully we can show to the public when the time comes for them to formally vote on this and have a working model. This does not actually create the enterprise fund that is the eventual potential ambition for solid waste pickup and incentives that go with it. And with that, I will entertain any questions that council members may have. Thank you.
Okay, on the committee, I see Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jamieson. And I'm okay if the answer to this question can be later part of the outreach. It was just a question that I got right before I got on the call for this meeting. So I wanted to put it to you, and it might be part of the conversation. The constituent that emailed me is wondering that when we do make this an enterprise fund and we start charging fees for the collection of solid waste, that this would be an additional charges to the resident in addition to the property tax that we just raised. Would that be correct? And again, I just want to put this out to you because it was just put to me, and I think that's a question that I was asked that I don't have an answer to, and I'm willing, since it would be deferred, to get the answer later. Since I'm just dropping this on you, but I wanted to put that out there for you.
No, we'll certainly have a more detailed answer for you well before any charter amendment is provided, and as well for the public in general. Right now, what we know is that Metro Water Services does operate as an enterprise fund. So to the extent there would be interest in trash collection following the same model, that would be the home department to consider housing it in. That does not mean that any decision has been made to make solid waste collection on enterprise fund collection. Now, to the extent there is an argument for it being an enterprise fund collection, the rationale generally, and this is at 35,000 feet, is that right now the individual who throws out very little solid waste is charged just as much as the person who throws out cans and cans of solid waste. There is no incentive towards conservation whatsoever, much less composting or anything a bit more sophisticated than that. So in the same way that you have a volume-based approach to water, if you had a volume-based approach that our peer cities have applying, you generally have more success with your conservation and recycling efforts. You do have materials from Fata Massimo and Shannon Whitelaw showing what peer cities are doing in terms of applying that rationale to their recycling funds. And you have a report from the Sustainability Advisory Committee that notes the advantages to that approach. But this, what you're voting on tonight, does not in any way enact an enterprise fund, and that is months down the road and for public consideration.
Councilmember Withers.
Thank you so much for recognizing me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jamieson, I think there are so many questions surrounding this already from constituents and the press. I just want to caution those of us who've been around Metro government a little while, and you've certainly been around much longer than I have, that sometimes, stories and misinformation can spread about change so much more rapidly than accurate information can. And I just worry about this kind of getting away from the administration and even the council very, very rapidly. So just want to, even the best laid plans, if they're not communicated aggressively early, can go wrong, as we've seen a few times. So just want to say that as a caution. But since this is the Personnel Committee in particular, I know there are a lot of questions, but the main question that I have, since our committee really advocates for employees, is has the administration thought through transfers of employees, salary compensation, retirement? There may not be any changes to that, but has the administration really thought that through with human resources, with the employer representation groups, and have any efforts been undertaken so far to communicate that to potentially affected Metro employees?
Councilman Withers, I know there have been those preliminary discussions. I might defer if I can. I believe Shannon Whitelaw is present and has her hand raised, and if I can defer to her.
Ms. Whitelaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Council Member, for the question. As far as personnel, yes, we have been in dialogue with Central HR regarding this. It is our intention that there would not be any reduction in staff of any kind for this move. All staff would be moved with the MOU as it occurred. There would be no need for any sort of reductions or anything like that related to solid waste. We have had preliminary conversations with employees just around the this is on the council agenda. It doesn't mean anything can happen, but this could be something that you might see in the paper and you might see in community, social media and other things like that. But everyone's job, as it is and how they function, would continue, because this is a wholesale move of that entire activity to water services.
And Councilmember, back to you. Do you have anything additional?
Well, I appreciate that. I just, again, I think that it's impossible to communicate early enough and often enough with regard to change, particularly with employees, but also with constituents. And so I think that I can't make this motion since I've already spoken, but if another committee has recommended deferral, it sounds to me like that's probably a good idea, so that the administration and council can all sort of get our arms around this a little bit more before it moves. It's my sort of recommendation, but I look forward to hearing what other committee members think. And thank you again, Chair, for recognizing me.
Absolutely. And I see Ms. DeMassimo, your hand is raised. Did you want to add something to this conversation?
I did, sir. Thank you so much for recognizing me. I wanted to add to Councilmember Withers' question and to the explanation offered by Director by Shannon. We started conversations with the Department of Public Works around this conversation around the Department of Transportation component of this proposed MOU nearly a year ago. And so the conversations around what the org chart could look like, what their thoughts were around how some realignment can occur, those conversations started about a year ago with existing staff that is there, and even back to the time when Mark was still Director of Public Works, we started those conversations way back then. So I just wanted the council to be aware that there's been a lot of input into this and a lot of back and forth and exchange on this as the conversation has evolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would urge this committee to not defer. I mean, since, I think some people seem to have a lot of questions about various things. However, I'm not sure that those questions are necessarily within the scope or purview of this committee. If anyone was in Public Works Committee, then they heard me speak pretty strongly against the 2-meeting deferral that was requested and granted. But I suppose that if anyone has questions to really think about, are they questions within the scope of this committee, or are they better addressed on the floor or by the Public Works Committee, rather than holding up something that I believe is being blown out of proportion slightly, because this is not doing everything that some are purporting that it will. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have a point of order. I'd like to ask Hannah, if you're still on with us. If we pass the bill instead of deferring, does that mean it does not come back to us when it's heard by the other committee when it comes back after deferral?
Correct. If you were to approve this tonight, it would not automatically come back, but you could re-refer it. But that would have to take place on the floor, just to be clear.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Ms. DeMassimo, did you have something additional? I see your hand is raised.
Please excuse me, Chair. I just forgot to take it down.
Okay. And Councilmember Parker is not on the committee, but will entertain your comments or questions at this time. You're recognized.
My apologies, Chair. That's a hand up from a previous committee.
Okay. No problem. Councilmember Young, I see your hand.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I sort of forgot where I was going when I spoke last and fell off track, but and I may have kind of misspoke, but the point I was trying to make was I don't know that a 2-meeting deferral matching the Public Works Committee is necessary, though, like I said, I think some might have questions. And so I would recommend that a one meeting deferral from this committee is probably best, so that in one meeting we can come back, and if others still have questions, then do another one meeting deferral. But I'm all in the spirit of trying to not slow things down for the sake of slowing them down and trying to be efficient. So I'm actually going to move for a one meeting deferral of this legislation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Young. That is a proper motion. Do we have a second for a one meeting deferral?
Second.
The motion is made and seconded for a one meeting deferral. I'm going to try this by voice vote, and I'll read the names if it's clear. Otherwise, I will call the roll. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any oppose? Any abstentions? Sounds unanimous to me. Voting in the affirmative: Roberts, Hauser, Rutherford, Suara, Taylor, Withers, Young. That is 7-0 for a 1 week deferral. Okay, thank you. That takes us to the next agenda. I'm sorry, somebody have something?
Yeah, just as a point of order, I guess, from the perhaps from Ms. Zeitlin. So
Go ahead.
So if Public Works, as I understand it, recommended a 2-meeting deferral and we recommended a 1-meeting deferral, we would on the floor in either case, because this does need to come back before personnel. I mean, I feel strongly about that. So in either case, we would need to request a re-referral on the floor. I'm just a little unclear as to what would happen. Would we just have to wait and see which deferral motion presides on the floor, like which one prevails, the one or the two? Or how does this work if you have different committees requesting different deferral periods? And that's just a point.
So,
well, I guess we'll find out unless Hannah has something for us.
So this is Hannah Zeitlin. Committee recommendations are basically just that, they're recommendations. So if one committee moved to defer 2 meetings, and then it was deferred 1 meeting, and then it was deferred 1 meeting on the floor, it would go back to any committee that had deferred it at the next meeting. So basically what happens on the floor is what ultimately is the determination of when it would go back to a committee. And so that's just how we normally treat it, is even if the committee deferred it 2 meetings, if it's back the next meeting, it'll go back to the committee.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Just wanted to make sure we're all understanding what the floor discussion tonight, what the implications of that are for whatever motion that we make. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next item, bills on second reading. BL 2020-387 by Hancock and others. Amends the Metro Code of Laws pertaining to health insurance benefits for members of Metro Council after they leave office. This is the one that was brought back by Rule 8, a rather unprecedented situation. As you all may remember, we had the special committee that was appointed to study this matter and make recommendations. It was a citizen-led endeavor, and they met several times over the last 3 months and clearly gave a lot of their time and effort into this. And some of the amendments that we're about to hear are a result of their work, and I believe we owe them, that committee a debt of gratitude for their effort on this matter. And I believe they do, in fact, deserve a hearing. And that hearing essentially starts tonight, this committee. And so with that, I am on the bill, so I'll make a motion to move the bill for the purpose of hearing the amendments. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded. That takes us to the proposed amendment number 1 by Councilmember Hancock. Councilmember Hancock, you are recognized for explanation of your amendment.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. First, I'll make a motion for that amendment so that Councilmember Hancock can present it.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a motion on the amendment. And I'll second it. The motion is properly made and seconded. Councilmember Hancock, you are now recognized for explanation.
Thank you, Councilman Rutherford, and thank you, Councilman Young, and everyone on the committee. I know we've had a lot of discussion about this bill in particular. We've heard a lot from the community. I myself really wanted to take into consideration the viewpoints, the opposing viewpoints to this particular legislation. We had an amendment that is currently listed as amendment number 4 in your packet that had been proposed by Councilman O'Connell in September. It was not timely filed, so it couldn't be added on in September, but he did present it to the Minority Caucus at their meeting on September, I believe it was September the 14th. And I've listened to that meeting over and over because I wanted to truly understand those points of view that were stated and why they voted to support Councilman O'Connell's amendment as a caucus. I felt like I did understand what they were asking and that I could go a step further. His amendment had 50-50, so the councilman would pay 50% and it would be subsidized 50% for 8 years after leaving council to give a soft landing. So I moved that to 75-25, where they could stay on the council insurance at a 75% subsidized rate for 2 years, then go to 50-50 for 2 years before dropping off to the 25 and then 25% subsidy and 75 that would currently exist for them. So I feel like that has a lot of support, and I'm very proud of the compromise, that we're making to get there and to get this out there for the community. I really feel like time is of the essence with our vote coming up for the ballots on the referendum being due on March 5th. Our vote tonight could really share with the community our knowledge that this isn't a precedented benefit in cities across the country, and it's something that we hear from the community and we'd like to modify. So I hope you'll support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized for comment or question on the amendment.
So I just want to ask the question, Tanya, so are you proposing amendment 4 is the amendment that's going to ride with this bill? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was that question exactly again?
Okay, there were 4 amendments to the bill, and I read each one. And are you saying amendment 4 is the one that you're going to present?
No, ma'am. There are actually 5 amendments to the bill, and Amendment 1 is the amendment that was both moved to the floor by Councilman Young and the one that I am wanting to present, the one that has 75-25 for the first 2 years and 50-50 for the next 2 years. Amendment 4 is the one that Councilman O'Connell had drafted that was 50-50 for 8 years. But in hearing the discussion, I understood that if someone was leaving council and truly needed the benefits, that would double the amount they would need to pay. And if they didn't have a job lined up yet, that would be difficult. So that's why I believe that 75-25 for the first 2 years is reasonable. That way it gives people a solid 2 years to find their next move in their career and get their benefits under control.
So which amendment is going to be presented on the floor with this bill?
Again, I will move Amendment 1, the one that we're talking about now, 75-25 for the first 2 years, 50-50 for the 2 years after that.
Anything further, Councilmember Hauser?
I do have, I don't know if this is the point to mention it or not. I know there have been several questions in regards to calling this a lifetime benefit. I want to let folks know I again talked today with Social Security and Medicare, and again talked today with our HR manager, Justin Stack. And yes, it is true that at 65, if one is on Medicare and you had Metro insurance, you are just paying a premium with no benefit because the Blue Cross Blue Shield Metro insurance does not pick up anything that Medicare doesn't already do. So there is no benefit to that. If one chose the Cigna plan, there would be a 10% possibility the Cigna might pay in some incidences. That's something that's been misrepresented to our public, calling it a lifetime benefit, which it is not a lifetime benefit. And I feel that that was sort of inflammatory type language that got a lot of people upset. That needs to be cleared up if that's not it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And I think maybe one way to clear that up, we have Shannon Hall with us, HR Director for Metro. Ms. Hall, can you elaborate a bit on this topic?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is Shannon Hall, Metro HR Director. I just wanted to kind of clarify some of the comments that were just made about Medicare. We do require any of our members that participate in Metro's health insurance, when they become eligible for Medicare Parts A and B only, we require you to take those. And if you are no longer actively employed or an active council member, those under the insurance industry rules will become primary. To be clear, Parts A and B are hospital and medical. So those Medicare would become primary as a former council member or as a Metro pensioner for hospital and medical. However, having the Metro coverage beyond that, not having any other parts of Medicare, including Part D, which is drug coverage, the Metro insurance would pick up anything beyond that, which would in fact be your drug coverage. Just so that's clear, we would reduce the Metro premium owed by that former council member in this case. And it's about a dollar in and a dollar out from a claims administration because drug costs are so very high. And not just necessarily for Metro's plan, but that is a general industry challenge, I would say. So to be clear, it's not accurate to say that they will get no benefit.
Thank you for that. I guess I do see another hand. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to echo your comments about the committee that worked on this. I know I listened in a couple of times, and I know that they were very thorough as much as possible. I would say, like one of my colleagues said, that one of the things for me about this bill has always been about some of the misrepresentation about it. People email me about millions of dollars every year that this is costing. Unless we stop the insurance completely for everybody, we're not saving millions of dollars. The additional cost for new members is about $400,000. One of the reasons why I felt like this actually is better for Metro is because if you stop the benefits and you start looking at increasing salaries, which a lot of, I know we look at the benefits by peer cities, we don't look at the salary by some of the city. Another council member shared something where Denver, a Metro city, was paying $93,000 to his council member. If you increase Metro salary by upward of 10, 15,000 annually, you will have more than the 400,000 additional costs that this benefit costs. And I know a lot is also being said about this being a full-time job. It really is. And so
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We're on Amendment 1.
Sorry, Councilor.
Yes, that is true.
This part of the rates that we're talking about, right? Is talking about 25 payments, 75 payments, right? And so we're still talking about that. It's about how much people are paying, if I understand that amendment correctly. Is that not right? Amendment 1 is talking about how much people will lose the benefit, but then they can have 25, 75 in the 4th year and 50, 50 in the 2nd year. That is amendment number 1. Is that not correct?
Would you like me to clarify too?
I'm speaking to the rate of the contribution. That's what.
Yes, Councilmember Hancock, please clarify.
Amendment 1 gives the same rate as you are on council for the first 2 years, 75 subsidy, 25 former member pay, and in the next 2 years it would be 50-50.
Thank you. The point I'm making is that these amendments and all the rates that is being discussed comes with the caveat that this 2550 saves millions of dollars, and that's the point that I'm making. Anyway, I'm going to say that yes, I understand the taxpayers are upset. I understand that we have a huge budget thing, and I understand why we're looking at all of this. But I just wanted to clarify that the millions that we're talking about is not. I do think saving any amount is good. Don't get me wrong. But I always want to make sure that whatever decision we're making, that we're using the facts as much as possible. So after saying that, whatever we're able to save, we will save. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Suara. I don't see any other hands. So there is a motion and a proper second for passage of this amendment. So I'm going to do a regular roll call on this one just to keep it in order. Councilmember Roberts on amendment number 1.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hauser.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Member Suara.
Hi.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
Aye. Aye. Excuse me.
7 in favor, 0 against, and that's everybody voting. So no abstentions. That was too easy. Let's go to amendment number 2, also by Hancock. Do we have a motion on amendment number 2?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move it just for the sake of discussion.
And I will second it. So it is moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Hancock for explanation on amendment number 2.
Now, the reason my name is on this amendment is because I was one of the coordinators of the Special Committee for Council Benefits. And in commitment to the citizens' hard work through that committee, I agreed to bring any legislation that got majority vote in time to the floor. So these next two amendments, Amendment 2 and Amendment 3, were suggested by the committee. So the first one is allowing council members to continue on council benefits at a 25% subsidy, 75% self-pay for 2 years following council, and then nothing. And the amendment number, did you also move Amendment 3 or no?
We have not.
Okay.
But are you suggesting that we move them together? We can do that.
No, I'll just stop there and say that's what that was. And I didn't feel like I would withdraw my amendment for that because I didn't think that this would really give the folks that needed it the benefits they needed as they went to their next role beyond council.
Okay. And I think as a point of order, I will clarify that the committee has the ability to move any and all of these amendments. That doesn't mean that that's what will transpire on the floor. So we can take them individually, pass them all, or whatever the will of the committee happens to be. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then with Councilmember Hancock's explanation, are there any questions on the amendment? I don't see any hands. Please interrupt me if I have. Councilmember Suara, did I see your hand?
This is a reversal of one. Is that correct, Councilmember Hancock? Is 75-25 government, and this one is a 25-75 government. Is that correct?
That's correct. It would override mine if they were both presented.
Thank you.
And I don't see any other hands, so I think we're ready to vote on amendment number 2. I will continue with a voice vote just to be safe here. Councilmember Roberts on amendment number 2.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hauser.
No.
Chair votes aye. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
No.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
No.
I'm showing 4 in favor and 3 against. The committee recommends amendment number 2. Moving to amendment number 3. Also, in the name of Councilmember Hancock, I will move the amendment for purpose of discussion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. Councilmember Hancock for explanation.
And again, this was the other suggestion that came out of the Special Committee for Council Benefits, a recommendation of 1 year at 50-50 coverage after council and then drop off.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee? Councilmember Suara.
I'm supporting all the rate adjustment because if we really want to save money, then let's cancel it all. So, aye.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? So we're ready to vote on amendment number 4. I'm sorry, amendment number 3, that is. Voting on amendment number 3, Councilmember Roberts.
That'd be a hard no.
Vice Chair Hauser.
No.
Chair votes aye. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
No.
Councilmember Withers.
No.
Councilmember Young.
No.
I'm showing 2 in favor, 5 against, no abstentions. The committee does not recommend amendment number 3. That moves us to amendment number 4 by Councilmember O'Connell. Is Councilmember O'Connell with us? I do not see Councilmember O'Connell. Hannah, do you know if anyone else is on this amendment or if we can hear it in his absence?
Anyone can move this amendment. The sponsor does not have to move it. And I'm happy to explain it if somebody does want to move it.
I will move it for the purpose of discussion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is made, properly seconded. To Hannah for explanation.
So this amendment is pretty similar to Amendment 1, but the percentages and the years are different. So Metro would contribute 50% of the contribution rate for the first 8 years of the continued participation after a council member leaves office. This is council members who have served at least 8 years. After the 8 years, the Metro contribution would decrease from 50% to 25%.
Okay, thank you for that.
It looks like Councilman O'Connell has joined the meeting.
Welcome to the meeting, Councilmember O'Connell.
So
you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I got distracted and was trying to be over in announcements. So for my amendment, basically the general principle here is to allow an easing off into the period of post-service for any future council member. So just as a reminder, I'm sure there's already been some discussion on the bill as a whole. We are the sponsors of this bill, anybody who's worked on it, including the original amendment I had previously, ensures that we are not pulling out the rug from anybody currently serving. After 2023, anybody newly elected for the first time, again, not anybody seeking re-election, anybody newly elected at that time would enjoy these benefits. Thereafter, my amendment would give an 8-year grace period for either a return to the private sector or whatever else somebody was planning to do after council. to pursue an opportunity that had whatever benefit level they wanted and could still enjoy these at a 50-50 subsidy ratio, and only after that 8-year post-service period would reduce to the bill's final proposed 25/75 threshold. So a couple of reminders. One, as currently amended in its current state, the bill does not pull the rug out from under anybody who ran with the expectation that these benefits would be available for the rest of their post-service career. Two, it does not eliminate the benefit for anyone on a forward-looking basis. It preserves that benefit just at a reduced subsidy level. And what my amendment does is basically give you a soft landing on that final subsidy structure.
Thank you for that, Council Member. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee on amendment number 4? Then I believe we are ready to vote on amendment number 4. Council Member Roberts.
No.
Vice Chair Hauser.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
No.
We're showing 5 in favor, 2 against, no abstentions. The committee recommends amendment number 4. That leaves us with amendment number 5 by Councilmember Toombs. Do we have Councilmember Toombs? I believe Councilmember Stiles is on this as well. Do we have either one of them? Yes, Councilmember Toombs is on. I will move the committee or the amendment for the purpose of discussion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. Councilmember Toombs, you are recognized for explanation of your amendment.
Thank you, Chair. So my amendment reduces the subsidy from 75% to 50% upon the former council member taking the benefit. Also, it ends the benefit at 65 or when the former council person obtains other insurance, whichever occurs first. And it also requires that the former council member submit a sworn statement that they do not have other insurance not paid for by Metro.
Thank you for that explanation. Do we have comments or questions from the committee? Not seeing any. I believe we are ready to vote on amendment number 5. Council Member Roberts.
No.
Vice Chair Hauser.
No.
Chair votes no. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
No.
That's 3 in favor, 4 against, no abstentions. The committee does not recommend amendment number 5. Okay, that is all of the amendments. We are ready now for discussion on the bill itself. Any council members wish to be recognized on the bill as amended?
This is a chair.
Yes.
This is a
Do
question.
you have a point of order?
No, it's a question, please.
Oh, okay. I wanted to give the sponsor, Councilmember Hancock, an opportunity first because I did see her hand pop up. So I want to go to her first. I'll come back to you, Councilmember Suara. Councilmember Hancock, did you have any further explanation?
Yes, some of which Councilman O'Connell said earlier, but I do want us to, make sure and listen to the public, and sure, not everything that we've gotten in our emails is exactly correct. So therefore, we're looking at this with an open mind and trying to consider all scenarios. And as amended, I think that this bill would really address the public concern. It would save some money, and that money would add up over time. And the main point is that this is a benefit that no other city has, and we've been holding on to it since 2012 when we asked our employees to wait 20 years to earn those benefits. And I think that it's an opportunity for us to realize that we had this 8 years because the employees were at 5 and at 10. So the 8 years was kind of a compromise. And I think it's time for us to compromise again, especially ahead of the ballot deadline for the referendum. We need to let the community know that we're ready to move forward, and after a 5.5-month hiatus can move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara, and then I'll go to Councilmember Young. Councilmember Suara is recognized.
Thank you. I just have a question, and maybe Ms. Hannah Zeppelin can answer that. I know that we have about 3 or 4 amendments, and some of them are conflicting. How does that work? Is that something that we'll just decide on the floor which one gets tagged to the bill?
This is Hannah Zeitlin. So all of these 5 amendments are still, I guess I'd say like in play. They could any of them could be offered on the floor. I think that, so as the vote count stands now, you have basically different levels of recommendation for each amendment. But yes, it would be something that you determine on the floor. And actually all 5 amendments conflict, which in some ways makes it a little bit easier, because whichever passes last is the amendment that will be on the bill.
Thank you.
If Hannah, that means whichever one passes last on the floor, right? Not on the committee.
On the floor, correct.
Yes.
In the committee, I think that the way that you have sort of set it up is you have recommended essentially 3 of the 5 amendments to sort of different degrees. And now you're voting on the amendment as amended. And I think that the way that you kind of have to read that a little bit is as amended in potentially 3 different ways.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Young, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quick, and I know that Councilman O'Connell had mentioned this, but it's not that I don't trust his law or legal background, but I would like for the committee to have an answer from Ms. Zeitlin that the bill as we have it tonight is previously amended from back in the fall that does not, as Councilman O'Connell said, pull the rug out from under anyone that is currently on the council that may have made career decisions and run with the promise that they knew that this would be something they could have. So I guess, Ms. Zeitlin, if you could just confirm that anyone currently serving on the council would be essentially, quote, grandfathered in to the legislation, and it's already amended that way.
Correct. The new provisions of this bill would not take effect until October 1st, 2027.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any other council members on the committee, but I see Council Member Rosenberg not on the committee, but we'll recognize you for comment or question.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'll pass. I got my question answered.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hancock, did you have something further?
Yes, I would, while I really respect the legal expertise of Hannah Zeitlin, I would like to clarify that this does not wait until 2027 to begin. Anyone that was first elected in 2023 would be affected by this legislation. We're not pushing it out 4 more years. I believe what she meant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah, but is that first termers, those that were elected for the first time in 2019, could still serve a second term and end up with these benefits. But people that serve for the first time in 2023 would be impacted by this.
Hannah,
yeah,
back
I think
to you
that's a different way of saying it, I think. So the way that the bill is written, it impacts those who have held 8 years or more after October 1st, 2027. So I guess that there are some people, I mean, there is, I guess, a situation I would clarify is there could be somebody today who has served 4 years and then runs again for another term after 2023. And so they're going to get their 8 years after. So technically speaking, I would stay away from the idea that it only applies to people that were elected in 2023. Instead, I think of it as those who have gotten 8 years before or after October 1st, 2027, 8 years of service.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hannah. Scrolling here, I don't see any other hands from the committee. So I believe we are ready to vote on the bill as amended. So I will call the roll on the bill as amended. Council Member Roberts.
Nope.
Council Member Hauser.
I am confused. We're saying voting on the bill as amended, but we don't know which amendment.
I'll take this as a point of order. We are in the middle of a vote, but the committee can vote all the amendments. It'll be decided on the floor which amendment actually goes on the bill. So we're waiting for your vote, Vice Chair Hauser, on the bill as amended.
I guess I'm still confused because if I don't know which
Mr. Chairman, we're taking the vote.
We are taking the vote. You're on mute. I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Then I'm going to abstain because I do not know what we're voting on.
Chair votes aye. Councilmember Suara.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
No.
Councilmember Withers.
Aye.
Councilmember Young.
Abstain.
We have 3 in favor, 2 against, and 2 abstentions. So with more voting for, I'm assuming the bill is recommended. Would that be correct, Hannah?
Yes, that's correct.
So it didn't need to obtain a number. 50%.
It's a simple majority. So the 2 abstentions don't count as no votes. So it's really 3-2. So
it's 3-2. So okay. So the bill is recommended as amended. Okay, great. That takes care of our agenda then. I do have one quick announcement before we close out the committee, just really quick. On the floor tonight, the Vice Mayor is going to announce the creation of another special committee, basically a task force, I should call it, for veterans. We're going to address some issues related to pandemic and how the pandemic is affecting our local veterans, also looking at how Metro serves our local veterans. And so we're looking for not only council members, but members of the public as well to serve on this task force, a limited period of time, ultimately also answering the question of whether or not Metro would be served by creating a commission for veterans to add to our list of boards and commissions. So think about whether you might be interested in serving on that task force. I would love to see representation of this committee, but that is up to you whether to serve. But I wanted to announce that to you here in committee, and it will be announced by the Vice Mayor tonight. So is there any further business to come before the committee? If not, then we are adjourned. See you on the floor. Thank you very much, everyone.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit Nashville.gov.